Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for choosing to be here. Sit comfortably and in such a way that we can all enjoy seeing each other easily. Yesterday, in the community, we had what's called a Samu Day, which is a work practice day. And it was very dear to me because I did, frankly, a lot of my encountering with what adulting is about in Zen training. I had the great fortune to stumble into this and be able to recognize it well enough to engage it when I was 18. And I remember I was living in an apartment in Boston at the time and was too cool for anything like doing dishes or cleaning the bathroom or any of that kind of stuff. I had no idea what it was to begin with, and I had more important matters to tend to, such as enlightenment. You know, I'm gonna do the Zen thing. It's gonna be great, you know? And I show up and get handed a plunger and a broom and a dish rag. No, I'm here for Zen. Yes, kid, here's a dish rag. Yeah. So, but you know, I transformed my understanding. Instead of doing the dishes in the apartment, being this odious, terrible burden, it's delightful expression of reality over time. It took me more than one encounter, believe me, but I got there. And you know, it just delights me to see that happening. We had some folks yesterday cleaning the grounds. You know, we have substantial acreage here, and there's been some flood waters and then a lot of debris and trash and so on. And so some able-bodied and so inclined folk made their way and took bag after bag after bag of stuff we don't want here, and recycling and so on. We spent time revisiting membership and how to streamline and improve it. So some of us thinking on behalf of the temple for a while, right? What a delight to gather and consider together how to help each other and to think and explore ideas together. It's a wonderful practice. Sewing, we had a beautiful progress with the new Shikai class coming up, some folks willing to take on the business of the precepts and formally becoming recognized as a Buddhist, exploring this idea, which of course brings up the business of araksu, right? The way we do this in our tradition. So, kitchen work, I mean, on and on, Zendo cleaning. But all of it in the spirit of practice. And not philosophically or abstractly, I mean actually, I could feel it moving through the space yesterday. I know those of us who were here did too. A real current of alive Dharma practice happening, you see. And then hopefully, not so that that only just happens here in these beautiful walls we're so lucky to share together, but take that experience and that skill and bring it back into the world, into an office where no one cares, say, about your practice. They don't want to hear about it. It's just, is the job done or not? If you can practice there, you can practice anywhere. Yeah, but how do you learn to practice there? Oh, okay, so you have to come into some kind of a stable environment. You have to be able to come out of the chaos and the tumult and the emotional drama and push and pull into a stable space, right? Where there's a clear way, rules of engagement, so to say. I mean, ways to do this thing, you see. And so then you come into the stable, structured way of being for the sake, not of itself, but for the sake of a young, arrogant, foolish 18-year-old learning how to do the dishes and take care of the toilet. And so it comes down to this business of how do we practice together? And I've had many just wonderful conversations lately with different Sangha members, long-standing folk who have some tread on the tire still, but have been around a while, right? And this current that is well noticed, that our society in general at this time really is not happy with institutions. Have you noticed this? Right? And maybe validly so in many cases. Clearly, we can think of institutions that our respect and trust has been eroded. It's not hard to call that to mind. But consider that institutions, what is an institution? Is it possible for an institution to be healthy? Can it be? Is it within the bounds of physics to actually have an organization that like works great and does well, or is it doomed to fail no matter what? Well, of course, humans are involved, so so there's that. But even so, what even is an institution or an organization? What is it? A stable, structured system, right? An enduring set of norms, roles, rules, practices, structures. See? It's an agreed upon way of being that's there to do a certain thing, whatever it is. So if it's the kiddo's little league team, you know, some organized way of engaging it. And why do we as humans do this? When it works well, let's say, what do we get from this? First thing is stability over time. And I mean that really sincerely. The Buddhist Sangha is 2,600 years old. Talk about stability over time. My goodness me. Now, mind you, we're not talking about a culture like being Italian, say, right? It's not that. This is an opt-in-able thing that's been going on. It's a set of principles that have been organized and reorganized, shuffled, sliced, diced, rematched every generation. Has that been a benefit? Is the human condition improved? That's just a good bottom line question. Is the human condition improved writ large? If humanity were to zoom out and look at it from as wide a possible lens that still includes humans as having value, has it helped the human condition? Some institutions, not so much, right? We can think of political movements and theocracies and really bad stuff. But on the other hand, some for sure, like rule of law, for example. So this stability over time, this is important because it persists beyond the charisma of an individual. It can persist beyond the skill set of one person. You know, if everything depends on that one person who can do all the things, and then that one person is no longer doing all the things don't get done because no one knows how to do them. Not so good. Assuming the things getting done are positive for the human condition, right? And the structure being normative, meaning it applies equally to everybody. It's not the strongest personality that gets to dominate everything in an actual healthy institution. This is not acceptable. It's not might makes right. It's not just charisma is the determinant factor. It's not the strongest, loudest voice gets to be correct because they're strong and loud. No. See, in an institution, a healthy institution, those kind of edges are going to run into guide rails all the time. There'll be systems in place that protect everybody. And this is really important because the critique against organizing is to say, well, everybody's voice should be equal and everyone should be able to just do whatever they feel. And the problem with that in actual practice is that you get strength wins. That's what you get. And that's not good enough. If our ancestors, say 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago went that way, we wouldn't be practicing today because it would not survive simple evolution of fitness. See? So somehow the Buddha had to not just teach a couple of pals. That's not the decision the Buddha made, right? He started that way. He started off trying to help his 5 ascetic friends, help those guys out. He could have said, oh, game over, that's enough for me, but he didn't. He spent the next 40 years organizing. Why did he do that? Was that a mistake? Should he have just said, hey, it's all good, whatever? I think not. I actually agree with the Buddha. I do. And I take what the Buddha said seriously. Believe it or not. I verify in my own experience, definitely. But so much effort spent into making clear, stable, normative structures that are not personal. And what does that mean? Impersonal sounds like cold and harsh and like, kind of sad. But it simply means koan, public case, applies the same to all of us. It's the same for everybody. That's what that means. In other words, I don't have the terminal degree in my field from the New England Conservatory because the chairman of the department liked me. That's not what that means. The credential I have in that field is because I prevailed against the demands of the credential, objectively. You see, and that's a good thing. We look at that for our lawyers and our physicians and our teachers, hopefully. But somehow, spiritual life, no. Free for all. Careful. Be careful. So this procedures, these rules, being clear, it's a pain. Well, it's not a pain, it's a challenge. How is this family, say imagine a nuclear family, how is that family going to navigate their day? There's a structure that has to be figured out. Imagine what happens to the kids if there's no reliable family structure ever. It's always utter chaos. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes the 4-year-old is in charge. Is this good? I think not. Does every family have to do the same? Of course not. That would be silly. The family has to figure out for the family what lands well for those folks at this time. Assuming kiddos and assuming health, people will grow and mature into different levels of development. And so what works for a family when the kiddos are 5 and 10 is not going to work when they're like 25 and whatever the other number would be, 30. Does it make sense? So the Buddha taught flow, right? You have to be able to meet the moment you're in and actually respond accordingly. And this balance, really, this holding both of these things, what does it mean to meet the moment authentically and also have some stability? This is the live wire that is so delicious in community life. And this, by the way, is where community life gets really juicy. This is where we get to encounter our edges. You see? Now, some folks, maybe we don't like to have clear ethical guidelines, say, which we do at the temple, because then maybe some difficulties that a person has, they become apparent and they get exposed. And maybe we'd rather not that be the case. But here's the thing. Everybody has edges. I sure do. Because people, right? There's great wisdom in understanding this. That's not the issue. The issue is, what do you do when your edges become apparent? See? Now, what a practitioner will do, what a practitioner of the Dharma, as I understand it, will do in this tradition, you'll go, nice. Here is an edge of my practice. And then you want to bring that up so that you can then work with it. This is not a problem to be hidden. This is a success. If you can actually encounter and cover an edge in your practice, celebrate. This is fantastic. This is a blind spot no longer blind. This is now, you can feel this icky thing, say, and now you can work with it. You see? You can bring light to the thing. You can erode your suffering, which is what this is all thing about. All of it is about this. So that many, many times in my training, I mean, it took me 20 years of training before I was asked to be a Shuso, just as a reference marker. 20 years of training and practice, and seriously training. At least for full sessions a year for those entire times, at a minimum. Sitting every day, okay? I promise you, within that 20-year span of training, before I was then able to give my first Dharma talk, lots of edges. Things I had no idea. And my teachers, thankfully, were the mirror. And thankfully, rather than run, or worse, build a fortress around my edges and make an identity out of that, which people do, for whatever luck, my karmic causes and conditions, which I have no control of at that time, were allowed me to be the kind of person who was able to tolerate looking in that mirror and going, I don't really like what I see. How do I work with this? And that is why my teachers had something they could work with in the Dharma. Do you see? And if a person is not at that point, it's not their fault per se. The causes and conditions are not yet ripe for this. That's a very important point. And if you're a person who is at that point, don't make a thing out of it. You just happen to be lucky enough, and be very grateful that you are. You happen to have the causes and conditions to be mature enough that you can stay in that furnace and do the work. Don't get arrogant about it. Does that make sense? There's a beautiful thing about the teaching of the Tathagata, right? The Buddha nature is inherently perfect. All of us are expressions of that same perfected nature. So someone who has a great deal of self-loathing and shame and trouble accepting yourself, please take the teachings of Tathagata to heart. You are perfect, complete, lacking nothing, dear one. You and all beings and all expressions, sentient and insentient, are exactly it. You do not need to add anything to suddenly count. You don't need to hack anything off. Be at peace, dear one. You are perfect, complete, exactly as you are. On the other hand, perhaps someone is a bit arrogant, thinking they're a little bit better than everybody else, or maybe a lot better than everybody else, particularly those people over there. Am I way better than them? Please, dear one, take the teaching of Tathagata to heart. You are not so special. None of us are. Everyone is of the exact same nature. Ha-ha. Neither you nor anyone else has any corner on this market. That inherent perfection doesn't belong to you. Sit down. Take your place. Same teaching, but the medicine applies to the disease. And I think sincerely that a healthy institution is just like this. A healthy institution, and it can be unhealthy, I know that. We have to continually be awake to this. But what a healthy, stable structure, a way of us engaging, what that does is it brings people nobility and dignity and power and respect. Respect the worth and dignity of each person, like for real. And also, the same rules apply to everybody. Do you see? This is how I was trained. This is the mind of my teacher, my transmitting teacher I'm sharing. So this leads us to a very important question, right? what is it we're doing here? What is this all about? Okay? I mean, it's very important to understand the mission statement. Like, what is this about? We have this, the Sangha covenant, respecting worth and dignity of each person, with wonder at the wisdom and compassion we seek to cultivate by practice. We're starting to tune in here. Practice. We're practicing folks. We're actually not just hobbyists who kind of have affinities for things. We're actually practicing in ways that are diverse, but recognizably the same. What is it to practice awakening, to practice the Buddha Dharma, to realize yourself? Now again, if I just take the little chunk of my own training tenure from, what was it, 87 to 2007. That was when, 2007, if I'm right, is when I got Shuso, is that right? I think that's correct. Yeah, so okay, so within that time, my understanding of practice evolved and devolved and revolved all over the place, because life is happening full contact. I'm also deciding what am I going to be in the world when I grow up one day, et cetera, you know, trying to figure relationships or not out, trying to attain some competency in my field of choice, all these things, right? But this business of engaging, what is it that I'm engaging? What is it that we are engaging here? It's awakening. See? And again, it's important that we understand that that's not just kind of like a random kind of thought formation. That's actually a thing. That's what we're doing, see? And so we have to organize ourselves in ways that we consistently remain intellectually honest about, and we're willing to critique and continue to evolve and grow. And differing institutions might come to very credible answers that don't agree with each other. And I think that's good. I'm a big fan of that. What that tells me is that we've got a diversity of beautiful ways to practice, and that's better for everybody. If you zoom out again, the best version of this would be that there are multiple right answers of how to practice well, and people find the one that best suits them. Like, there's just no downside to that. That's perfect. But it has to actually be based in real practice, see? This is the thing. It has to be based in actual enlightenment and awakening. See? So how does this happen? All right? Who gets to call the shots? Well, spiritual authority in this community has to do with the tradition that we have inherited, right? And by the definitions of the Zen Buddhist tradition as we've inherited it, it has to do with spiritual maturity and practice and depth, as understood in this tradition. So like whatever standing I have here does not make me anything else at all. I have no expertise in reading the Akashic records, say, or forest bathing is a thing, or it doesn't apply to, I can't go to the synagogue down the way and read the Torah with any credibility, et cetera, right? So within where we are, the stream of this institution winds around the practice for the practitioners, for the guides, for all of us. That's what we're doing. That's how it's functioning. So it's not by fiat or by charisma or by might making right or by a bloodline inheritance or anything like this. It's by actual practice and realization of the Buddha Dharma. See? But it's good to know what the mission statement is, because if you're, like what the project is, right? So if you're coming to the nudist temple of Toledo, well, okay, guess what? There's going to be an organizational institution around that. Yeah, if you're going to have a good, proper nudist temple. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, really, seriously. I mean, if you're going to do that, and I'm not recommending we do, I'm not going. But if there were one, how is it going to be organized? Right? How's that going to happen exactly? Well, yeah. Some people have a visual. Okay. Yeah. But that's the project then. Okay, fine. That's what people want to try and do. Go do that. See what's there for you if that's what you want to do, right? But is it just going to be random? Is it going to persist over time? I mean, it's a farcical example, but it doesn't really matter what we're trying to do, right? As humans, if we're going to actually engage with other humans, then we have to make some. Even the decision to not decide is the decision, as we've all heard. And there's a very important reality. Either you are or are not something. Like if you've served this country and you're a veteran, you are a veteran of this country. And if you're not, you are not. Right? That's not a negotiable, that's not a personal opinion. Did you pass the bar or not? It's a factual thing. Right? It's impersonal. Of course, it feels, it matters to us if I'm trying to pass the bar and I can't, or if I crush it or whatever. But the thing is to understand very clearly, we're organizing ourselves for the sake of awakening, and we're actually doing it. This is not the only way to do it. I wish there were more evidence of more beautiful ways to do this. As I often say, I wish there was as many temples and sanghas as there are Starbucks, say. Wouldn't that be an amazing world? Wouldn't that be better? I think so. I'd love to see the Mahasangha just flourish beyond belief in this beautiful bouquet of wondrous ways to practice. And our way of contributing to that is making the decisions we all make. How are we going to be? How are we going to do? How are we going to function? Now, happily, in this tradition, we're not tethered to some unquestionable text that can never be challenged or altered. No, this is a fully human endeavor, which is beautiful, because guess what? We're all humans here, right? So, what's the mission statement, right? What are we here to do? Are we here kind of hanging out and having fun? Well, at times, yeah. But what are we actually here for? Awakening. We're actually here, this is a dojo, and we're here to learn this thing. We're here to practice this Buddha Dharma. We're here to come to full awakening and actually have that awakening manifest in our daily lives. However that looks, whatever that looks like. You may look at the world right now and find ready to hand many social justice movements that need attention. Kind of, how could you not, right? And so what I would say is, if you're a random person trying to make a dent in some serious issue in the world by yourself, you're not going to be able to do very much. You're just not, probably. But if you find like-minded folks and you organize intelligently and with wisdom and compassion and try to think about how to help this thing in an organized way, well, now there you go again. You're making an institution. You're organizing. And it's a good thing. You see, does that make sense? So this is very challenging for our times. It's very challenging because there's a lot of examples, as I said, of institutions that, trust in them has eroded for good reason. And I get it. Religion itself is obviously, maybe not obviously. I don't have a blank love of all religions on the planet. I don't. There's a lot of things going on that are, in my opinion, very harmful to the human condition. Suffering lessening or increasing? Is the human condition improving or worsening? But I also think there's a lot of music that I don't like. Does that, you know? So what does that mean? I'll close with an example. You're in LA, it's the 80s. There's cocaine, there's party, right? There's some kids that have some money, and they're party kids, and they play really well, and they make a party band, and it's called Van Halen. Causes and conditions produced, to me, an important band in my youth, okay? Now you've got another group of kids. A Holocaust surviving set of parents had a kid. They're in the colds of Canada, and there's some IQ happening here. So you produce a reflective, thoughtful, cold environment with brutal contact with reality and suffering, and you get Rush with Geddy Lee. Okay? It's not a party band. Which one of those is true? They're both what they are. But I'll tell you what, they can play. Oh yes, they can play. Do you understand? They bring it. Yes, they did. That's the same thing if I go Robert Johnson in the blues and Django Reinhardt, say, in the gypsy jazz tradition. They bring it. So what does bring it mean in the Dharma? It means awakening. Actual awakening. Then, there's different ways a band can show up. There's different ways a sangha can organize, but they're going to be organized. Rush doesn't get up there and just randomly do whatever they feel like. Neither does Van Halen. Neither did Robert Johnson or Django Reinhardt. So too with us. It's not that complicated. Just keep it very, very clear. We're all here practicing together. We respect each other. We hold each other. We respect each other's worth and dignity. And we're doing a job. We're playing a gig. And that gig is awakening. And right now, this world that we're all sharing together needs this awakening more than any other cool bands. As fond as bands as I am, more than any other thing. So let's dig in and do this, folks. We can. We have everything we need. Let's just show up and do the thing. May it be so.